What are we going to find? Those of us who are absolutely fascinated by how media moves back and forth, and fascinated by the rises and the falls that happen so quickly these days. What are we going to learn in traffic?
So, I mean, I think the thing that was most interesting to me was to go back to this early digital media scene in New York in the early aughts, and all these mostly young, mostly progressive people who, most of all, I think, thought that they were building this progressive new media. And in some ways, Huffington Post, sort of devoted to getting a Democrat elected, culminated in some ways in we thought maybe, in the election of Barack Obama in 2008. And now you look back at it and it's like, wow, actually, where this really led was a different place. It was, Andrew Breitbart, Steve Bannon were hanging around that whole time in the early days. And the place it really culminated was the election of Donald Trump. And it was something totally different from, I think, what its creators expected.
So, Ben, congratulations on the book. It is here.
Thank you, John.
Can't wait to read it. So talk to us about this idea of figuring out what goes viral, what takes off.
Yeah.
And I know the book covers some of that. Whether it's political, left or as you say, on the right, or even if it's something that just sort of captures the imagination of it. Like, what was the science behind it?
Well, I think the basic shift that Jonah Peretti at BuzzFeed was maybe the first to really crystallize was just that media, the way media was going to get distributed was no longer just opening a website, turning on the TV, but was going to see what your friends were sharing. And when I was at Politico, actually, years ago, I had sort of seen that start to happen on Twitter. And when Jonah was looking for news at BuzzFeed, that's why I was drawn to it. Okay, like that seemed like how news really was spreading. It also seemed basically kind of interesting and harmless at the time. This is a great way to pass scoops around, great way to pass around fun memes. Interesting jokes, a dress that could be golden, white and gold or blue and black, and argue about it. I didn't see the extent to which really toxic politics would be the thing people would want to share and talk about most. I mean, there was this sort of theory on the early internet, actually, that these public shared news stories would have to be positive because people would be sort of embarrassed to be their worst selves, to yell at each other in public. I mean, that did not turn out to be the case.
We all got that wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, it's Catty here. I mean,
Catty.
Hi. Let's take that forward a bit. What if, at some point, do we get fed up of the kind of toxic stuff? And if there is a reversion, if old becomes new again, what is it to? Is it to the big media organizations? Is there space at all for a kind of more objective news standard taking hold? Really old is new again. Because I can't believe that in the long run we really want toxic in our lives forever, do we?
No, and I think what you're seeing from consumers, and also from Facebook, which basically shoved news, which had been this massive distribution engine, and then basically just pushed news out. Yes, as you say, people being really sick of that kind of content, that kind of politics. I think that the notion that you just go back is probably an illusion, and everybody is sort of feeling their way toward what's next. I mean, I do think one thing that you see is sort of an attachment to, as consumers who are totally overwhelmed by what they're getting, aren't sure what to trust, try to find their way out. Part of it is finding individual people, journalists, who can talk, in a very transparent way about what they know, about what they think, and speak very directly to readers in a way that is not the way old newspapers worked. And I think, that's certainly what we're trying to do at Semaphore. But I do think it's this strange moment when readers, viewers are very unhappy with what they're getting and are trying to figure out what the next thing is. We all are.
What's so fascinating, Ben, is here we find ourselves in a position. If you look at the podcast list of top 50 or top whatever, you have so many in the top whatever. People setting themselves on fire every day, it seems, politically, to try to draw more listeners. What's at the top? The Daily, which, again, people can debate. Is the New York Times center, left of center, far left, whatever? They can have that debate. But it is an effort by the New York Times, Michael Barbaro, to give people the news without a whole lot of the heat. And as you've said before, the New York Times, the New York Times is just on fire. They're doing extraordinarily well right now. So in the midst of all of this chaos, here you have you have this bedrock institution, and of course the Daily is the New York Times as well. But you have this one institution that keeps getting stronger and stronger. You look at the magazines that are doing well. It's magazines like The Economist that are doing well. Also, it's people who are attempting in their minds, again, we can have ideological debates, I know people out there will, but people who are trying to deliver the news straight as they see it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the other thing is it's a much more splintered landscape. Like if you look at podcasts, as you mentioned, Joe Rogan, very, very popular, Barbaro, very, very popular. Nobody getting more than 5% of the market. And really what you see is hundreds and hundreds of people with much smaller audiences. And I think consumers sick of the notion that the way you consume your news is you go to one central place where everyone is screaming at each other at the top of their lungs and are looking for smaller conversations with more like-minded people, which is, has its own issues, but is much more like media used to be, and I think probably more comfortable for people in the long term.